All right, welcome to a jam-packed episode of SJHL Insider. I'm Clark Munroe from IKS Media here, the co-director of media for the SJHL. Very excited to get into the show today. It's our first playoff edition of SJHL Insider. We have some crazy Game 3s to talk about, some insane Game 4s to talk about. We'll preview Game 5 and 6 in a couple of series. And on top of all that, we're going to be joined by two-time SJHL MVP Kian Bell. That sounds pretty cool to say. Two-time SJHL MVP. Does not happen very often from the Battlefords North Stars. Plus, I'm very excited to be joined by my new playoff co-host, Jamie Neugebauer. Don't go to... Oh, he already went to him. Jamie, they went early. That's okay. But welcome to the show, Jamie.
Yeah, it's a real honor to be here. I know, again, sort of big shoes to fill with Jeremy Corrigan, but...
well, technically, you're filling my shoes. Yeah, I'm filling Jeremy's shoes.
Well, even bigger shoes, because you're bigger like shoes. 6'9". So.
Yeah, well, not quite, but I wish. That'd be fun. We do have a guy in this office who is 6'8", I think he is. Or is he 6'9", Daniel, in the office here? Either way, tall guy. But before we get to too much else, we got to thank our sponsors, of course. And by doing that, we have to start with UPL Canada, UPL Open Egg. They are the sponsors of this show, SJHL Weekly, and the entire playoffs, UPL is. They're great partners, and thank you to those guys and everybody there. Plus, we got to thank Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Chevrolet, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, Sask Energy, SGEU, and SGI. Thank you to all of our partners. Let's go back to Jamie here. Jamie, it has been a crazy couple of days. We both got to go out on the road a little bit. I joined you in Estevan on Tuesday, and I was with Roy McGoran on the Humboldt Broncos broadcast on Wednesday, beside Nick Nielsen, who was doing the Weyburn Red Wings broadcast. And boy, was that a crazy couple of days. Just before we get into each individual game, what are your thoughts on the last little bit here in the SJ playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, whether there were sweeps, because there were two, spoiler alert, or whether, a team like the Estevan Bruins are on the brink, obviously Weyburn, Humboldt, it's 2-2. We'll get into all that. But my point in saying all that, Clark, is even if the results look the way they do, don't just rely on the results, because every game has been so competitive. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been tight. I think Flon beat Kindersley 8-0 one game. But other than that, it has been tough and could go either way. And, you talk about what separates sort of maybe the top four teams or the top teams from the bottom teams. It's not coaching. It's not effort. It's not, it's not those intangible things. It's, does this team have a premium shooter? Maybe this team doesn't. That's kind of what's been separating for a lot of it. It's been really interesting, though, because it's been really, really tight. Games could really go either way, all the way across the board. So the competitiveness is what I'm excited about in round one. Yeah, and there was some very tight games over the last couple days. So why don't we do that now? Let's kick off the hat trick. Now, Jamie, me and Jeremy always joked that we should have hats falling from the roof, or like throw hats around or something when that segment happens. And we still haven't gotten to that yet. The budget hasn't allowed for it, but one of these days we're going to get there. But as we get into our first topic, we are going to look back at the first couple of days of the week, games 3 on Tuesday, games 4 on Wednesday. So let's start with Tuesday and just go through what happened. Flon took a 3-0 series lead with a 5-2 win over the Kindersley Clippers. The Bruins, in one of the best games I've legitimately ever seen, and it was so much fun calling it with you, Jamie. They cut the lead in the series 2-1 with a 4-3 win over the Melfort Mustangs. The Weyburn Red Wings took a 5-3 win over the Humboldt Broncos to cut that series to 2-1. And then Battlefords took a 3-0 series lead with a 5-3 win. A huge third period from Kean Bell individually, but just in general, a 4-goal third period from Battlefords. And we'll get into that in a sec. On Wednesday, as we switch over, we did get the sweep. The Flin Flon Bombers swept the Kindersley Clippers with a just narrowly squeaked out 2-1 win. Melfort took a 3-1 series lead with a 5-2 win over Estevan. And then 2 overtime games. First in Weyburn, again, I was at this game. The Weyburn Red Wings tied up the series at 2-2, forced a game 6 for sure, with a 4-3 win over Humboldt. And Battlefords took a 3-2 win in overtime with a goal from Rylan Williams to sweep that series with a 4-0 series win. So a crazy couple of nights. Of course, those look-backs are brought to you by Sask Lotteries. So let's go series by series, Jamie, and I'll just kind of quickly recap each game, and then we'll just chat about it really quick. Again, back on Tuesday, Flon with a 5-2 win. Carter Anderson, 2 goals and assists. Harmon Laser-Hume made 25 saves on 27 shots, I should say, to lead the Bombers to the win. Brock Mueller had a goal and an assist for Kindersley, but it just wasn't quite enough. Cody Jamin had 28 saves, but got replaced late in the game by John McPherson, who actually ended up starting Game 4. And in Game 4, Justin Lees and Matt Egan put the Bombers up 2-0. And then a late third-period goal from Cam Perlinger on the power play gave Kindersley hope, but just not quite enough to get them back into the game entirely. The Bombers were only able to get 23 shots on goaltender John McPherson that night, who made 21 saves. But the Clippers tested Harmon Laser-Hume and he made 35 shots, and he made 35 saves to complete the round 1 sweep. So Jamie, I think out of all 4 series, on paper, this one looked like it could be the one that ended up in a sweep. But I think we all thought Kindersley might scrap out at least one win. Even, I know Flin Flon on paper is one of the best teams in the country, but Kindersley, they had so much kind of momentum. There was a lot of excitement around the city. They did keep it close, especially in Game 4, but it just goes to show you, I guess, how solid Mike Reagan has built this team in Flin Flon.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, all of us were at least a little concerned about what we saw from the Bombers down the stretch in the regular season, right? We were like, are they playing playoff hockey? Are they getting complacent? Did Mike Reagan do too much at the trade deadline? Are they too worried about points? Whatever, all these things. But we also know, and I don't remember if we said it or not, but maybe we should have. Mike Reagan is a wonderful coach, and he's not Mike Reagan, one of the best coaches in SJHL history for nothing. He's the coach of the year. He's got this team going. Now, Clayton Jardine and his team deserve a lot of credit. I want to give some good time to them because they hadn't seen playoff hockey since 2019, and just kind of like Melville, and we'll talk about Melville, I'm sure, a bunch, Clark.
Yeah.
It not only has they not made the playoffs since 2019, but they were, sort of bottom feeders for a while, and there was a core of guys on that team. You think about Logan Linklater, you think about Tylen Hilbig, specifically, Ethan Hilbig, Cody Jamin and Logan Falk last year, again, getting that experience to work into this year to make the playoffs. That core, made this team relevant this year, down the stretch. I wonder if they ran out of steam or what. That's how they ended up 8th. And obviously, kudos to the teams ahead of them to kind of avoid the Flin Flon behemoth in that first round. But it's just nice to see playoff hockey back in Kindersley. And I think once Clayton Jardine, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, Clark, when Clayton Jardine lets maybe the pain of this series subside, he'll realize that they started something exciting out there at the West Central Event Center. So I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, and, again, big shout-out to the 20-year-olds on that team. Yeah. The importance of Simon Diaz that he had for that team coming over at the trade deadline. Logan Linklater and Tylen Hilbig were so good all year. Brock Mueller was such a good addition for them at the trade deadline as well. And, a lot to be happy about in Kindersley, I would think, and I think that fan base has to be excited just kind of seeing the vibes around the team this year and then going into next year. They got some youngsters coming back. A guy like Brock Evans, for example, I think of. Who will be eligible to come back, and Cody Jamin, if I'm not mistaken, is an 04, and Falk will be back, and McPherson if they want. So they got a good building block of guys to come back next year, I would say. Hey.
Yeah, I mean the bigger thing, other than being, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but what in terms of more than being excited about talent coming back, I think the thing that I'm excited about Kindersley is the culture that is started out there. And I talked a lot to Clayton Jardine about his decor throughout the year, and those guys got lots of experience. Obviously DeGraves and Diaz were big pieces that were added. DeGraves because he was hurt a lot, and Diaz because he was acquired. But guys like Austin Oshovi, I wonder if he got tired because he was relied on heavily. Yeah. Guys like Luke Schrader, Russ Demo. So, they had that opportunity. I think the decor and the goaltending is very exciting. And then maybe you add some more dynamic offense because you got to replace the offensive Logan Linklater
Yeah,
and
top
Talon
two
Hilbig
scorers
and
for
whatever.
sure. Yeah.
It's a big problem. Obviously, Zach Anderson's a guy. Again, he couldn't stay healthy, but he's got to come back and be a big piece for this team too. So I'm sure Clayton Jardine will work his contacts, which he has many, and add some weapons. But I do want to talk too about the Flin Flon Bombers. You always talk about in these moments when things go to plan, it's when your best players are your best players, and when they don't go to plan, that's when your best players aren't your best players. Well,
Sure.
the big boys for Flin Flon, Silvestri, Anderson, Lees, Vockler, all had 3 goals. You don't throw in Noah Hull, they all had 7 points at least. So, they were stepped up big. Power play stepped up big. It all kind of worked out. But it was a tighter series, maybe, other than the 8-0 game than people thought. Kindersley had offensive opportunities at times, but Mike Reagan. The question was whether he could rev this team's engine.
Yeah.
I think their engine's revved.
Yeah, Harmon Laserhume with the 2 shutouts as well. He had put up some nice numbers, and lots to look forward to for Flin Flon as they move now into the second round, and just a wait to see who their opponents will be. And there's a lot of scenarios that could still play out with that. So as of right now, depending and we'll get to this in a sec, but Battlefords has gone on, so we know one option, but we'll see what else happens. But let's get into Estevan Melfort now. Tuesday night, we were together broadcasting that one. It might have been one of the most entertaining junior hockey games I've maybe ever seen.
It was good.
At least until Wednesday night when I was in Weyburn. We'll get to that later. But Melfort stormed out to a 3-0 lead midway through the game, which included a shorthanded breakaway blast by Logan Belton. But late in the second period, the Bruins scored 3 goals in 4 minutes and 3 seconds to tie it up going into the third. Keegan Little sealed the game with a late third period goal, and the Bruins held on to a 4-3 win late in that one. And then in game 4, Melfort scored the first 2. Estevan scored the next 2 in 19 seconds. I think it was 19 seconds, right after the other. And then a big third period with 3 goals pushed Melfort to a 5-2 win. Estevan went 1 for 7 on the power play in that game, and James Venn made 28 saves for the win. So, Nugsy, you were on the call for both of these. Estevan's down 3-1 in the series now, as Melfort can finish it off at home on Friday night. But what were the vibes following Wednesday night's game?
Following Wednesday night's
Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think about both of these games, 3 and 4, and really they hinged on whether Estevan could score on the power play, because Melfort was very undisciplined both games.
Yeah.
Estevan had 14 power plays over the 2 games, 7 each. The difference between game 3 and 4 is in game 3, Estevan went 4 for 7 with the power play. Yeah. And in game 4, they went 1 for 7 with the power play. And, I think about even late in the second period, in game 4, Estevan had a 4-on-3 with about 2.5 minutes left in the second, and the game had just been tied on a gorgeous, gorgeous goal by Keegan Little. That was unbelievable. If you can go and watch it on Flow Hockey, that was a sweet goal by Keegan Little. James Venn, man, when he's locked in, you talk about clutch, right? I talk about Dazza Mitchell, and does he always have the best numbers? Maybe, but he's clutch. James Venn, he's clutch. He's got that gene. Harmon has that gene definitely this year. That really separates. And, I think, for Estevan, I think there's a sense that they played good hockey, this whole series. But, again, James Venn, sometimes he just makes a save. And that's sort of the way it works. Talk about basketball, right? You have that open 3-point shot. Do you make it or not? And you could talk about circumstances as much as you want, but there are been moments in this series. It's 3-1 Melfort, moments that the Mustangs just scored when the Bruins didn't.
Yeah,
it sounds simple, and you were there, but the vibes were fun. It was fun though. You're right, eh? I'll ask you this, Clark. Very penalty-filled game both ways.
Yeah,
but to me, it was still a lot of entertaining. Usually, you say, "Oh, there's no flow because there's penalties," but in game 3, there was still lots of entertainment. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Game 3, I thought, was officiated quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, there might have been a call here, a call there that was, maybe 50-50, but generally I thought it was called pretty well. Yeah. Obviously, I can't speak for game 4 because I was in Weyburn for that one, which shenanigans. We'll talk about that in a sec. But, generally I thought it was a really well officiated game in game 3, and I thought it led to a ton of entertainment. I mean, I think everybody was on the edge of their seat for most of that one. The crowd, after, obviously when you're down 3-0, it's tough to get the crowd into it, but quickly they came back into it, and that Estevan crowd was fantastic. How did they do? Did they sell a few more tickets for Game 4? How was the crowd? A little bit bigger?
Yeah, it was about the same.
It was
I'd
good.
say,
It was a good crowd
it
on
was
Game
good.
3. They really got into it. But Jamie, I think one of the things we talked about as maybe an X factor for Estevan coming into this series was going to be who else is going to score. We know who's going to score, but who else is going to score? And that might be a problem that you can see going into Game 5, because in 3 and 4, Game 3 and 4 is Keegan Little, Zach Burfoot, Chmielewski, Keegan Little. Game 4, Chmielewski, Keegan Little.
Yeah.
Like, who else is gonna get on the score sheet? And I think that if they can get some of that secondary scoring from a guy like Owen Barrow or Papas Baropoulos has 5 assists in the series, so he's not doing nothing.
Right.
But and he has a goal. But if we can get some other guys' names on the goals aside of the score sheet, I think that would go a long way in Game 5. I would say.
Yeah, I think that was the big difference in Game 4 was the depth.
Yeah.
And I think I spoke in the when we were previewing the series. I said, Estevan's got to find a way to generate offense 5-on-5. They scored 5 goals in a row in this series on the power play. They've scored.
Yeah.
They're 7 for 22 on the power play in the series. So the power play is working.
Yeah.
But they're having a hard time 5-on-5 generating against this Melfort team. Now, got to give the Mustangs more credit, because the Bruins are not playing bad. Like, they've got a good team. They got a good roster. I give the Mustangs more credit than I take anything away from Estevan. Trevor Blevins' team is right on that edge. They're taking some penalties. Trevor Blevins was furious with his team after Game 3.
Yeah.
And not only for taking the penalties, but for the inability to kill them. He doesn't mind if they take a few hard nose, mean, make you feel them penalties. That's the way he wants them to play, and they do it well. They get in your face, they get in your head. That's what the Mustangs do. They've done that for years. I mean, you've been calling. You've been watching the SJ for years.
I've seen
it. And Trevor Blevins' Mustangs always do that. And they did it to some degree. But, again, I'm wondering if the Bruins can find a way to generate 5-on-5 and whether that's a problem because the Mustangs were able to kill in Game 4. But it's been fun. It's been really tight.
Yeah, and
really
one of the things you just mentioned a few minutes ago was the difference in this one is not coaching. Both these coaches are extremely experienced. They have very successful track records, and it's just going to be a matter of which puck bounces which way. I think in Game 5, that's going to be really interesting. Melfort can close out the series on Friday.
And who gets the bounces? Last thing I'll say, Aiden Hutchinson. Are you kidding me? He is he's taken another step. He was unreal in the regular season. He's taken another step. He's got 6 goals already. Yeah. And he could have more. He's been on a problem. He had Felix Allard on his back and just went out in front and scored. And just he wasn't, Allard wasn't there. And obviously Allard is a U Sports committed D-man. What he's doing.
He's pretty good.
Aiden's on some sort of fire right now.
Yeah, 2 goals and an assist on Wednesday in Game 4. So big performance there by member of Team Clark's fantasy team, Aiden Hutchinson. Big shout out to him. Well, let's go to Weyburn Humboldt now. So on Tuesday night in a back and forth affair, it was literally Weyburn, Humboldt, Humboldt, all the way through the game until the end. Jackson Ruthven notched a goal and an assist, and Dazza Mitchell recorded 34 saves as the Red Wings made it a 2-1 series after Game 3. Cage Newens, Matthew Van Blaircom, and Dalen Weigel all had 2 points in the loss. And then on Wednesday, holy cow, again, back and forth. It was 1-1. It was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. All out shenanigans fest. It was unbelievable. Everything happened. Me and Rory said midway through the game, if you're playing bingo on this game, everybody's bingo card is blacked out right now. Everything has happened. The goalies were fantastic. Huge saves, cross crease saves. The boards in that rink are very active. It literally led to a goal, almost led to 2 other goals, how active the boards were. There was a game misconduct. There was a 10-minute misconduct. There was an unsportsmanlike conduct. There was the crowd was electric. As you know, the Weyburn crowd doesn't take much to get them into a game, but what gets them into a game? Penalties.
Right.
If there's penalties,
Or
that
lack
crowd
thereof,
that crowd is unbelievable, and they were electric all night. And again, just about anything you could think of pretty much happened in this one. Benjamin Motu got peppered. He made 40 saves on 44 shots, while Dazza Mitchell didn't get tested as much, but late in the game was tested quite a bit. He made 25 saves on the night. And I have a little Dazza Mitchell story that we'll get to in a sec. But again, I was on the call for Game 4 with Roy McGoran, and all night long we just kept saying how everything was happening. The Bob Cole quote, right? Everything was happening. And it was just such a textbook playoff hockey game where it was just every play was important. Every play could have led to something. It was exciting. Nugsy, this series has been such an intriguing one with the home team winning all 4 games. But what do you expect going into Game 5 on Friday?
Yeah, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the series is.
You mentioned Dazza Mitchell. I mean, he had an 870 save percentage in those 2 losses.
Yeah,
he had a 906 save percentage in these 2 wins.
Mm-hmm.
He's especially at the Crescent Point place. He's got that clutch gene. The Weyburn, the Humboldt Broncos, I think, got to be kicking themselves too. I think they feel like they had opportunities to really have strangleholds on this series because they had late second period leads in both of these games too, and plenty of good opportunities. They weren't playing bad hockey. One of the things that Rory has been talking about all year with this Humboldt team is discipline.
Yeah.
And in Game 4, they were not able to stay out of the box. 9 power plays. You give Weyburn 9 power plays at the Crescent Point place, you are going to lose, probably, because their power play was the best home power play in the league.
And they did get 2 goals on the night on the power play as well, so it made a big difference.
Yeah, and then obviously the goal that Nick Kovac scored in overtime. What do coaches always say, Clark?
Put it on the net. Put it on the net.
Right. So
and that was what we said. It was 19 minutes and 24 seconds into overtime. It was back and forth, and there were nice chances on both sides. And with some of the ways that the goals were scored that night, I said to Rory on the broadcast, it's going to be like a weird one. Like it's going to be one that's kind of we aren't really expecting. It's going to go in and we're not even going to quite realize it. And, I give credit to Nick Nielsen. He had a fantastic call on the goal. Maybe over-exaggerated how hard the shot was, Nick. Yeah. No offense. But, Nicholas Kovacs, in fairness, skated in, got the puck. It was probably on the left face-off circle or the dot, and kind of just put a nice wrist shot on net, and it went top corner. And I think there was some traffic and stuff, and Benjamin Motu it beat him. But at the end of the day, a very exciting game. And after the game, when Nicholas Kovacs scored that goal, Dazza Mitchell sprinted to the other end of the ice and joined his teammates in the scrum, and then kind of just stood by himself for 2-3 minutes and just kind of looked around. And he saw some people in the crowd, and he was pointing at them and kind of saying thank you. He saluted the crowd, and he kind of just stood there, took it all in. And I was like, man, that is I can tell. And he kind of just put his arms out at one point and was because he was exhausted at the end of that third overtime session. And after the game, I saw him in the lobby. He came up to me and, such a nice kid, said thank you for everything we do here on the shows and everything. And I said, Dazza, thanks for everything you do because you're giving us lots to talk about, and that was a fantastic game. And I saw that look of joy on your face at the end, and he said, yeah, I was just so exhausted and so happy. So it just all came out at the same time.
And a top 5, whatever you want to say, maybe top 3 interview guests we had on SJHL Weekly. Terrific. One last thing I'll say about this too is, human nature being what it is, the Broncos, came away with 2 wins that they felt were relatively dominant at the Elgar Peterson Arena. And, you look at the average ages, and Rory likes to talk about how young the Broncos are. I still think they have veterans where it matters. Yeah. Obviously, Motu and Newens and Bryson and Bell, these are 20s and 19-year-olds, and Cook and Weagle, and the list goes on too. These are 19, 20-year-olds. But that all being said, Weyburn average age is over 19 and a quarter. They're an older team for sure. Humboldt is 18 and 3/4 average age. So the Broncos are a little younger. I wonder if they showed some of that youth in games 3 and 4 also. Maybe thought they would be easy, showed their undiscipline a little bit. So there you go, a little experience on the side of Weyburn, and that helped.
And I will give them a lot of credit because Landon Stromey got kicked out of this one for a check from behind or a boarding. I'm not sure exactly what they actually ended up calling it. I'm sure I could look it up. But it was a major boarding, 5-minute boarding penalty. So, they had Stromey out for most of the game. It was half the game, just over half the game. And Rylan Hugh, who was in his first game ever in the SJHL as a 2007, he was forced to play a little bit more. He probably wasn't planned to play much, but he got a few shifts out there. He looked fine, but he was the one serving penalties all night for the team. And but what that means is that Stromey was out, and Cage Newens actually got a 10-minute misconduct as well. Nothing's going to come of that from what I'm told, but there was a little shoving incident with the referee as they were heading to the box, kind of just get off me type stuff. But he was out too. So what I'm saying is they were down basically without playing Rylan Hugh. They were down 3 forwards for a good chunk of the game. And Cage Newens and Landon Stromey are important players for the team. So they were able to sustain or get through that and end up, they played a really good game. But at the end of it, I think
Weyburn. The war of attrition, Rory called it. I think Weyburn just kind of snuck out with that one. Again, it was right at the end of overtime. Our last series we got to talk about, Battlefords in Melville. A 4-goal surge in the third period, including 2 goals from Kean Bell, sealed it to push the North Stars to a Game 3 win in Melville, and 5 points overall for Kean Bell that night. 3 goals, a hat trick. 26 save performance from Logan Cunningham, who really solidified what we all kind of said was a slight question mark heading into the playoffs for Battlefords. And then in Game 4, Melville pushed it to overtime with a mid-third period goal from Ewan Morrison, but it was Rylan Williams, who just came back from injury 5 minutes into overtime, to score the series clinching goal for the North Stars to sweep Melville Millionaires. Will Dyke was fantastic in both nights. He made 35 saves in Game 3 and 42 saves in Game 4. But Nugsy, we thought this series might be one that actually would go a little bit deeper than a sweep. I don't think any of us predicted a sweep in this one. We all thought Melville was going to push this one. And in fairness, a lot of these games were extremely close. Yeah. And Melville did give Battlefords a hard time and a run for their money. But that experienced Battlefords North Stars team just found a way. They just found a way.
Well, if you look at the deeper stats, the games were flipped coins.
Yeah.
And that's what you kind of want in 4 or 5. But the good chances, kind of the home plate chances over the 4-game series were 38-37 in favor of Melville. So what is the difference? The difference is Battlefords has Kean Bell and Ben Portner and Brad Blake.
Yeah.
And Melville, we love Luke Beadall. Like, we go down the list of that Melville team. There's guys they're older and have lots of guts, and maybe they're talented kids. Eogan and Beadall and those guys are maybe just need like a little bit more time to become like the premium shooters when you get to the postseason.
Yeah.
And Kean and those guys, and I'm excited to talk to him on the show here coming up.
Yeah, he's coming up in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, to talk about the fact that in those key moments, a little bit of experience will slow the game down, calm the situation down a little bit for you. And Battlefords had those shooters that when they got those chances, they were able to convert them just a little bit more than the Melville Millionaires were. Now, as I mentioned with Kindersley, Clark, and I know you were sort of around at the tail end there of the last time Melville was really kind of relevant in this league.
Yeah.
This is a fan base like Kindersley that's suffered and struggled and been real bottom feeders. Talked about them last place last year, and they got the first overall pick. They took Preston Bearwald. Be interesting to see if he's a piece for them next year or beyond. But Doug Johnson does not come in and change the culture, change the attitude of the whole community towards the Millionaires. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the season, even more than this disappointing series. And you're right, like I expected it to be 5, 6, 7 games, but the Stars found a way to play team defense. They hadn't really done that much. They had a tough schedule down the stretch too. Rory talked a lot about the fact that the Broncos had a tough schedule down the stretch too. And so that sometimes the perception of how a team is looking heading into the playoffs can be colored by who they're facing, and the Stars had a tough schedule. But that all being said, they found a way to play defense, and they found a way to get some terrific goaltending from Logan Cunningham. Both goalies really need to get up and take a big bow, because Will Dyke and Logan Cunningham were wonderful in this series both ways in the net. Will Dyke, what a wonderful career. 921 save percentage. Felt like he was, wouldn't allow any goal against anybody the last little while in the regular season. So, he had a tough start there with Humboldt. Went off to the SJHL, found his confidence, came back this year, had a great year. So good for you, a 921 save percentage in the playoffs against the defending champions, one of the best players in Canadian junior A hockey, in Kean Bell. But just wasn't enough, and it just comes down to that pure offense.
And speaking of Melville, just got a quick note from Commissioner Kyle McIntyre, and he said, guys, make sure you give a shout-out to Benny Walchuk, who just completed his 12th season of junior hockey broadcasting and has now gotten over 700 broadcasts in junior hockey. So Benny Walchuk, one of my faves, one of all of our favorites. We love Benny. And Benny, congrats. Here's to another 12 and another 700, I would say, at least, and then some. He's a great guy. He's one of the busiest guys in the sport. So keep it going, Benny. Love Benny.
Let's get into our second topic here. We'll breeze through these next two because our guest is ready for the interview segment here coming up. Topic 2, let's look at the player stats really quick across the SJHL playoffs so far. So we'll go player stats, and we're going to look at the goalie stats as well. But if we can go player stats now, as we can see, Kean Bell leads the playoffs with 10 points. Matthew Van Blaricom, who was fantastic, by the way, in that Game 4 loss. He did score a couple very nice goals. He has 9 points. Aiden Hutchinson, who's been a beast, 2 points a game here, 8 points in 4 games, 6 goals, leads the SJHL playoffs in goals. And then, like you said, the Flin Flon boys, all with 7 points. Chase Freetmore has had a fantastic series for Melfort. And Ben Costantino, the rookie, continues to just have an impressive season. 4 goals. Man, he blasted one in Game 4. And we called it an old-school slap shot, old-fashioned slap shot. Just
I missed those.
Stepped into it. He's a big boy. Just ripped it. Beat him clean. Beat Dazza Mitchell clean. And then Ryan Duguay, again, a very impressive player. Let's look at the goalies now here really quick. Harmon Laser-Hume, goaltender of the year, leads the way. 2 shutouts, 975 save percentage. I think if you put up a 975 save percentage and under 1 goals against, Jamie, that's usually a good formula.
Yeah, 3 goals on 240 minutes.
There you go. Yeah, unreal. Logan Cunningham having a very impressive playoff so far. And we'll talk to our next guest about that coming up here. John McPherson came in relief duty in Game 3 and had a nice Game 4. To put his numbers up there again. He only played the 2 games, but a game and a half, I guess. Not even a game and a half, just barely over a game. Will Dyke had a fantastic series again, just couldn't quite sneak out a win. And then you look at the rest of the numbers there. But anything stand out to you, Jamie, about the player stats or the goalie stats through 4 games so far?
Yeah, I mean, Matty Van Blaricom, I find that interesting. Obviously, he's an 06 birth year. And in our previews, I talked about how Nick Kovacs and Tyler Teasdale of the Weyburn Red Wings, and Max Bennett. Obviously, he's an ace. Vizentini, really good defensive forwards for Weyburn, and they would probably be working hard to shut down Bryson and Spencer Bell. And
they did in Game 4. They did a great job. Against them.
And so the question is, who's next up? And the Amaral, Kaufman, Van Blaricom line has been wonderful in the playoffs for Humboldt, mostly because Weyburn said, we're going to circle that line. We're going to say that line won't beat us. Somebody else will. Fine. But Matty Van B, he's impressive.
Cody Mapes and company did a great job shutting down Spencer Bell and Travis Bryson and Cage Newens in Game 4 at least. I can't speak for Game 3, but they did a great job in Game 4 doing that. Finally, topic number 3 of the hat trick here. Let's go to the just a quick reminder to get your votes in for the RBC Community Ambassador. As you can see on the screen here, we have the finalists are on sjhl.ca. And we can bring up the 4 finalists now. Joey Lees, of course, from Flin Flon, Keegan Little from the Estevan Bruins, Jacob Causette from the L'Orange Ice Wolves, and Leith Olafson. All great candidates. And if you want your player from your team to win, or if you want to just put your vote in anyways, if you don't have a horse in the race, so to speak, head over to sjhl.ca. Voting goes for another 2 weeks and a bit. April 14th is when that will end. So you have lots of time. You can vote once per day. Have you heard any issues about the voting since we got that? I think they were looking into it because some people were having trouble getting a vote in. Please trust me when I say to everybody, I'm gonna call out the Flin Flon people specifically here. We're not trying to shut you guys down. There isn't a conspiracy against you guys, okay? I promise. There was just a little minor glitch in the voting for a couple of days, but I believe that's sorted out. So make sure you get your votes in once a day. And it's not us against you, Flin Flon. I promise you guys. I promise.
But who are you cheering for in that vote, Clark?
Anybody but Joey Lees. No, I'm kidding. No, any of those candidates would be fantastic winners. So I'm not going to get in trouble with Flin Flon here today. I don't think. I'll save that for another time, maybe. But I promise you guys, there's not a conspiracy against you.
Can I tell you who I'm cheering for?
Yeah.
I'm cheering for Jacob Causette.
Okay.
Because I wrote Jacob Causette the article on that Sask Finest.
Yeah.
And his mom baked me muffins to sort of say thank you, which was nice.
Yeah.
Of course, unfortunately, I couldn't eat them because I'm gluten-free, I'm celiac.
Oh.
But that being said, it was so nice. I was so touched.
So what I will say
so I'm cheering for Jacob Causette.
Is if the Causette family wants to make muffins and send them to us, we will put a conspiracy
but
out
those
against
that
the
ate it said it was delicious. So.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into any favoritism or anything like that.
Yeah.
Go vote at sjhl.ca for who you want to win. It's gonna work, I promise. And if it doesn't work, we're not holding you guys back, we promise.
Really nice.
Anyways, he's been waiting for a few minutes, so let's get to it now. We are going to be joined now, and happy to be joined by Kean Bell, who was recently named SJHL MVP of the year for the second straight year after leading the league in scoring again and playing a huge role in the North Star season. Kean, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're excited. And before we look back at your regular season, you just completed a 4-game sweep of the Melville Millionaires. That was a team that, we all thought here in the studios and everything, that they might they might get a couple of wins against whoever they ended up playing. Because obviously the playoff bracket came down to the very last day of the regular season. So we didn't know who they were going to play, but whoever they played, we thought this team was going to be tough to play against. And just you guys found a way. Just how tough were the Mills in round one? And maybe what was the difference for you guys in that series?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference was honestly we just tightened up our defense, and our goalie Logan Cunningham stood on his head for most of that series and had a great series himself. But yeah, the Mills are a super tough team to play against. They're really good defensively and stuff, but we knew we kind of had a little bit of an edge on the offensive side of things. So yeah, we were just happy to take it in 4 and get some extra rest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not going to hurt at this time of year.
No,
But a big 5-point performance from you and a huge third period in Game 3 got you guys the win in Game 3 in Melville, and then a real tight overtime game in Game 4, and you guys were able to squeak that one out. It probably was pretty nerve-wracking for everybody involved, but what did those 2 wins, I guess, in like the way that you won those 2 games mean for you guys as you head into the second round?
yeah, it's awesome. Like it was a 4-game sweep, but it really wasn't if you think about it. Like all the games were pretty much 1-goal games. Even I know you said the last 2 games, but even Game 2, I think we were killing a 6-on-3 for like a minute, and we all rallied together, and we were confident. We know it in the room that as the game goes on, we usually play better. So we're hoping to get better starts, but we know as the game goes later, that's usually when we're at our best. So.
Yeah, Kean, again, thanks for your time. As always, you're so generous with us. SJHL MVP of the league. I think I can break this news. It's not huge news. The SJHL's nominee for CJHL MVP of the year as well. I guess, what does being the MVP mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot. I've said it before, and I guess I'll say it again, but there's so many guys around the league, especially, and even on our team who could have gotten that award. So it's not just a one-person thing. It takes a whole group to get that award and stuff. But yeah, it's a big honor, especially for 2 years in a row. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're out there listening, go on YouTube and watch Ali G talk to Steve Nash about being the MVP of the MP3. He goes back and forth. I sent that to Kean to prepare him for this interview just for fun. I hope you enjoyed that clip.
Good reference. Good reference.
Yeah, it was.
Kills me every time. I got to ask you, Kean, about pressure. I talked to Braden Klamosko earlier in the year when you came in back from Major Junior, and he talked about how it just having you in the lineup just kind of put everybody in the spot that they're meant to be, and that comes with pressure on you a lot of nights to be the trigger guy, to be the guy that makes the pass. And every team, and you know this better than me, every team in the league, just when Battlefords comes in, they're gonna circle your name. They say, let's try to hit Kean, let's try to be physical with Kean, let's da with Kean. So just talk about handling that pressure, both from inside your locker room and from the other teams in the league.
Yeah, I don't feel too much pressure. Braden and Chili and all the guys in the room are really good at that. They just I feel confident with my game when I'm around all of them and stuff, and just having fun is usually just the key to success. And then with guys circling my name and stuff, like all the guys in the room have my back. It's like even if somebody's like being friendly to me, somebody will step in and make sure nothing's going on. So we have great guys in the room who are willing to do anything for this team.
So, Kean, going into the playoffs, one of the questions that we had about the North Stars was in the goaltending department, and simply just because Matthew MacArthur and Logan Cunningham kind of split games throughout the second half of the season for the most part. But over the last few weeks, including the last few regular season games, Logan Cunningham has really answered the call. What can you tell us about him and how important he's been to your roster?
He's been awesome. I mean, we kind of heard like the whole goaltending struggles and stuff, but it wasn't on the goalies. We knew in the locker room that it was all 6 guys on the ice. It was all 25 guys in the dressing room. we were kind of slacking off defensively. But I played in Edmonton with Logan at the start of the year, and I knew that how good of a goalie he actually was. So we had no doubt that when it came time, he was going to step up. And same with Matthew MacArthur. He's been great. He keeps the dressing room so light, and nothing's ever tense. And he's a great goalie too. So either or whichever one's in net, we're super happy with.
Yeah, and obviously Logan, tough time there statistically in Edmonton. People think of see like a WHL logo or major junior logo beside a kid, and they all of a sudden have preconceived notions. I think, but again, only 18. Like, gotta give a kid some credit too, and has a great prep school career. I gotta ask you too, Kian, about your line. Obviously, last year. Maybe one of the best lines I've ever seen in the SJHL. You and Holden Dole and Jake Southgate. That was ridiculous, and I'm sure you had a lot of fun playing with those guys. But this year, it seems like you have another, band trio there with Ben Portner and Brad Blake. Just talk about sort of maybe comparing, that line last year with Dole and Southgate to the line this year.
Yeah, in lots of areas it's very similar, like I really see Jake when I'm playing with Ports. Like, Ben's so shifty with the puck, and he's just so good one on one, and he's so good at protecting the puck. He reminds me exactly like Jake. And then Brad, he's quite the shooter, so if you put the puck on his stick in the high slot, there's a good chance he's going to bury it and stuff. And he's also got great vision. So just all three of us as a line really help each other out, and it's just a really good balance.
Does it help you to communicate with Brad because you're both sort of from Atlantic Canada? Do you have like Nova Scotia, Newfoundland kind of banter going on, or what?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the Newfoundland accent or anything, and I can barely understand it. So, but no, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. And obviously, you've got lots of Saskatchewan connections. So, I got to ask you about, that and wearing that Battlefords crest on your chest. I know it's become your own thing the last couple of years because of, it feels like you've been around the SJ for forever now, but it's only been 2 years. It's kind of funny how that all kind of works out. But, obviously you have your uncle who's a legend. You have your mom who's a legend in Canadian hockey, and she's very proud to be, a Saskatchewan girl too. So just talk about the family that you come from and how much that's helped you be the guy that you are and the player that you are.
Yeah, it's super cool. Just with even my grandpa, my mom, and my uncle all being around the Battlefords since they were super young, and getting to kind of follow their footsteps, I guess, is really neat. And then also having a person like my mom and my uncle who have been around the game for so long, who can give you advice and pointers here and there. It's super helpful, and I wouldn't be here without them today. So, yeah.
Kian, there was obviously yourself and some very important veterans on your roster this year, but there was also some really, really good young guys on your team this year. I think of Carson Olsen, who won Rookie of the Year. I think of Rylan Williams, who had a really big role for you guys. Can you talk about kind of how the Battlefords, I'm going to call it the formula in Battlefords, just keeps rolling? Obviously, last year you lost, I think it was over 200. How many goals was it, Nugsy? It was 200 and some goals. 7,000 goals. I mean, you came back, obviously, so that lowered that number a little bit. But it seems like when those holes open up in Battlefords for the last while, somebody steps up and fills those holes. So can you talk about a guy, maybe Ben Portner, maybe Rylan Williams, maybe Carson Olsen, who just seem to keep filling those holes and having huge impacts for your team?
Yeah, those three guys that you named. I mean, there's a bunch more. Braden Sinclair, lots of young guys on our team who are fantastic in every way possible. Like, they're all super offensively gifted, but then they can, like, Sink and Williams are killing penalties nonstop too. So, it's great. And I mean, I guess when you have a year like last year, I mean, lots of people are starting to want to come to Battlefords now. It's one of the top programs in Canadian junior hockey right now. So, uh, I guess I don't know, Braden and Chili and Wiley and all the coaching staff, they got it down to a T. I'm sure, and they know what they're doing recruiting.
So looking ahead to round two, how confident is your locker room? I guess you don't know who your opponent's going to be yet. That'll be determined over the next few days, or maybe a little bit longer, going into early next week, depending on how the series go. But how confident are you guys just in your own locker room right now?
Oh, we're super confident. I wouldn't say we're overconfident. You don't want to be too cocky and whatnot, but we're in a good spot right now. We have lots of experience from last year, which is the most valuable thing when it comes to playoffs, and especially like if you think of guys like Josh Meternak, who went to the Western League final last year with Winnipeg. He's been great too. So yeah, we're in the room. In the room, we're just great, and we're super positive. And it doesn't really matter who we're gonna play. We're not gonna change our game. We're just gonna go out there and do what we can.
Yeah, for sure. Last one for me. I can't believe, by the way, that we've gone this long, and Marty and Kennedy, them and Battlefords haven't had a promotion where you can actually have like a Battlefords cowbell or something. But anyways, that's for another time. I gotta wonder, Kian, what's your plans for next year? I know you're focused on the playoffs and going far, but as far as you're willing to tell us, is it college? Where can you tell us anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've got it narrowed down to a few spots, but like you said, I'm gonna try to focus on the playoffs first. I'm gonna get through that, and then I'll probably take a couple days once the season's over and look it over even more. I've been meeting with some coaches and whatnot recently, so yeah. But like you said, I'm just really focused on this season right now. But I'll be sure to let you know when I know.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Perfect. Then, well, Kian, thank you for joining us today. Congrats again on the MVP season. Congrats on getting the sweep in the first round. Have a few days of rest. I'm sure everybody will be happy with that. And good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And that was two-time MVP and forward of the year, Kean Bell from the Battlefords North Stars. So thanks to him for joining us and taking some time to answer some of the questions, of course. And that's pretty much the end of the show. I mean, we still have a couple things to get into here, but we want to look ahead to the weekend here because there are three very important games on the weekend here. Friday, there's, of course, Game 5s. Humboldt is hosting Weyburn, and then Melfort is hosting Estevan in their Game 5. And then there is a guaranteed right now Game 6 on Sunday, back in Weyburn. Humboldt will be back in Weyburn. And we'll see if there's another Game 6 in that Melfort-Estevan series or not. But, Jamie, I guess what are you looking forward to this weekend the most?
Yeah, I mean, I hope, not just because I'm calling the games for the Bruins for this postseason, but I hope that there's no lack of hope and there's no put your head down and be, worry too much about the fact that they're down 3-1. I'd like to think that Jason Tatarnic knows how to rally the team and get the guys going. Obviously, Northern Lights Palace, that is a tough place to go, but the Melfort Mustangs hadn't lost a game since, they lost in the last game of the year in the shootout, in a game that didn't mean anything. There was a lot of APs and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So the last game that mattered that Melfort lost was the 14th of February.
Yeah,
crazy
stuff.
It was a long time, but the Estevan Bruins proved to them, to the hockey world, that they can beat this Melfort Mustangs team. Got to go into Northern Lights Palace and do it. Again, that's been tough. That's been tough as long as Trevor Blevins has been there, and I'm sure beyond.
Yeah.
But there's lots and lots of talent on this Estevan team, so I hope there's no give up. There's no quit, and I don't think there will be. I think Keegan Little and his leadership group won't let that happen. So I'm really excited to call the game tomorrow on Country 106.1 and discoverestevan.com.
Nice plug.
Or you can listen to Benny Tompkins there on Flow Hockey. And very interesting to see. I mean, which Humboldt Broncos team will show up, which Weyburn Red Wings team will show up. Right?
That series is wild. Yeah.
We knew that those were two of the most penalized teams in the league.
Yeah.
Two emotional teams, two well-led teams. Humboldt's a real tough team at the Elgar Peterson Arena. They showed that in games 1 and 2. Got to get back to that.
Yeah.
As a Mitchell, can he perform the same way that he did in Weyburn, in Humboldt? Again, that'll be on him to prove it, but it'll be interesting. Where are you going, Clark? Are you going to go to any games? Or
No, I'm busy this weekend with some family stuff.
Okay.
If I can just say this, I actually am going to be stopping by a couple Moose Jaw Warriors playoff games in the WHL. So I got some family going to that, and
see if they can keep games to single digits.
Yeah, we'll see. I wonder if
show respect to the other team.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if they score 10 or more in the playoffs, if the Regina Pats will say anything about it. No shade anywhere. Just joking. But that's where I'll be this weekend, and I got some family stuff on Sunday for Easter.
Gotcha.
So got that ahead of me for this weekend, but I will be paying attention and watching of course, as things progress, because it is very interesting. And for, like you said, I'm really hoping that Melfort Estevan series goes the distance. I would love to see that get to Game 7. I think that's an exciting matchup, and both teams deserve it to go as far as possible, and then just see what happens. But if you can't get to the games, actually, before we do all the plugs at the end of the show, we have a few minutes because we have a hard out today in a few minutes in this recording session, because we all are baseball fans. And Director Bryce in the back, baseball fan, Rockies fan, which is not going to hold it against them. Myself and Jamie, Blue Jays fans. Jamie, it's time for an unsolicited segment that I like to call Blue Jays Corner with Jamie Neugebauer. Jamie, really quick, how excited are you for opening day in baseball?
Yeah, really excited. I like how the Jays are managing this season. Obviously, it's not ideal to have your two best high leverage relievers on the shelf to start this year.
Correct.
In Romano and Swanson, but they're kind of managing this team like they're trying to win as many games as possible. Right now, you don't have a Daniel Vogelbach on your bench to try to hit a dinger in the ninth. If you're not trying to win right now, otherwise you would have had like a Nathan Lucas or something.
Yeah.
Right. So the Blue Jays are out there to win it and to be serious from the very beginning and set that kind of culture. So they got it. They got to go out and prove it. Obviously, their schedule is brutal to start the year.
Yeah.
The Rays and the Astros, two terrific baseball teams.
The Dodgers are coming to town. I'm going there in late
that's
April.
exciting.
The Dodgers are coming to Toronto, and I'll
There
be at
you
those
go.
games. A couple of them
when I'm there for the Centennial Cup, I hope to catch a game or two. But I mean, obviously, it's big years there for Vladdy and for Bo to show what they they can do. Dalton Varsho needs to bounce back.
Yeah. I think everybody on that batting lineup needs to bounce back slightly. Vladdy, Bo. I think George Springer probably wasn't super happy with his season last year.
Varsho is awful.
So I think there's a lot of potential. And as my friend Max Ritz, my buddy Max, sent me a GIF this morning of Ted Lasso saying "smells like potential," and that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. But that was Blue Jays Corner with Jamie Neugebauer for SJHL Insider. Maybe it'll be a regular segment going forward.
Sounds good.
But for back to the hockey now, which is why we're here. Make sure you head out to the rinks this weekend. There are some amazing games on the way. If you are in Melfort or if you are in Humboldt on Friday, please get to that game. Get to the rink. Buy some tickets. Those are going to be exciting. And then Weyburn, I don't have to tell you, Weyburn, get out to the game on Sunday. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm sure that those crowds will be vibrating with excitement. But make sure if you can't get to the games, that you do get your Flow Hockey subscription. You can watch all the games on Flow Hockey or follow along on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. We'll have all the updates, all the recaps, everything that you could need. And on our YouTube channel, all of the highlights, of course, as well as sjhl.ca. So make sure you're following all of our places, all of our platforms, and we will keep you informed if you can't get to the rink, but please do try to get to the rink because these are awesome games. And of course, thank you to our sponsors again, UPL, our biggest sponsor for this show and for all of our broadcasts, as well as the entire SJHL playoffs. Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Chevrolet, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, Sask Energy, SGEU, and SGI. That'll do it for our first playoff edition of SJHL Insider. Jamie, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, what a treat. I love it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Clark.
We're
Thanks for
talking
having me.
hockey, and there's sun outside. It's getting warmer. It's exciting. You love this time of year. Thanks to Bryce and Jordan in the back room there. I don't know if anybody else popped in, but thanks to Bryce and Jordan specifically. And thanks to all of you, the fans, all of you, the viewers. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you get out to the rinks this weekend. There's at least there's 2 Game 5s on Friday, at least 1 Game 6 on Sunday. We'll see what else happens. So again, get to the rinks or get your Flow Hockey subscription. And until then, we will see you on Monday for our next edition of SJHL Weekly, and then back here on Thursday next week for SJHL Insider. I'm Clark Munroe for Jamie Neugebauer, Bryce and Jordan in the back, and everyone here at IKS. Enjoy the hockey this weekend, folks.